the way that I would describe my job is that homecoming is really Grace's vision. She's the founder. It's her concept that we're all working towards bringing to life. And my role is really to kind of take that vision and understand it, translate it, and really break down, what does that mean? What does it look like? What does it feel like? What's the team that we need to create this whole thing? And budgets and all of the stuff that goes into it. And so I kind of lead the team on a more day-to-day basis and make sure that we're all fulfilling kind of Grace's vision for homecoming. So today, I'm going to try and keep today's session as informative and sort of practical as possible. I'm hoping that we've got lots of people in the room who maybe want to create their own festival, or maybe have a festival and want to kind of upskill it, or maybe there are people in the room who have an amazing, successful festival that they just want to hear how somebody else approaches it. So I'm just going to start off by talking a little bit more about myself and how I've ended up in this role. I think it's good to have context of where someone's come from to understand why they approach their job in the way that they do. And then I'm going to kind of really talk through step by step my process of how we approach homecoming every year. What are the building blocks that really create the festival and bring it all together and bring it to life? And then at the end, I'm going to have a QR code on screen, and it's got a link to all of our most important templates that we use for homecoming. So if you're at the start of your journey and you want to build a festival, hopefully some of these documents are just going to kind of fast track you. You won't have to build a budget template from scratch. You can use our template and see if it works for you. So that's going to be the structure of today's session. So how it started. So as I say, my name's Ailish, and my path to working on homecoming and leading a festival is really a little bit skew-with. It's not necessarily what I set out to do when I was a kid. It's really an incredible thing that I've been so fortunate to develop into. So when I was 18, I didn't go to university. I moved to London I grew up in a small village, and I moved to London when I was 18, and I started interning. I actually started my career in theatre, and I started interning in different places, working for free, just learning as much as I could from people. And I worked in lots of kind of minimum wage jobs, worked in call centres, bars, while I sort of learnt my craft and really learnt from the people that I was around. And then I actually fell into producing kind of accidentally. When I was 19, 20, I wrote a play, and I got a commission for that play at a really amazing theatre in London, and I got it fully funded, but I didn't know any producers. I knew producers who were senior, top level, amazing producers, and I felt too intimidated to ask anyone to help me. And I didn't know any young producers who might help me bring my play to life. But I had this incredible opportunity that I didn't want to turn down. And I made the slightly naive decision to figure it out and produce it myself. And I made a lot of mistakes. I learned the hard way, and I figured it all out for myself, piece by piece. But eventually I brought it to life and had successes. There are things I would have done differently if I had the skills and knowledge that I have now, but that was really my first go at producing something. And then from there, that opened up other opportunities, and I was able to then go and produce things for other people, or on larger scale productions, go and be a production assistant and work my way up through that chain. I then went and worked for an event agency in London who we worked with big brands. Nike was kind of my day-to-day main client. I also worked with other fashion and lifestyle brands and alcohol brands, all sorts of different global brands, which was a really great experience in just understanding what a brand wants out of an event or an experience. And that's really informed a lot of my role on homecoming when it comes to liaising with partners and sponsors and bringing all of that together and understanding how that all kind of connects. And while I was at that agency, I was able to work on a few projects with Skepta. And at that point, Grace was Skepta's manager. And so I was able to work with some of the team and met them. And then I ended up leaving that job. I went freelance. And my very first day of being freelance, I woke up after my leaving party the night before, had an email in my inbox from Grace saying, please, could you come in at 10 a.m.? I have a brief for you. And I said, can I come in tomorrow at 10 a.m.? So I did that, went in at 10 a.m. and that brief was the first homecoming festival. So that was in early 2018. And when I went into that meeting with Grace, she explained the vision, explained what she wanted to do, all of the different components that she wanted to have part of it. But the thing that I really remember from that meeting was that she explained to me that she's British Nigerian, that she has these two cultures, and she hadn't been to Nigeria as a kid. She'd gone for the first time as an adult and had this experience of feeling like she was going home. And that just really resonated with me immediately. I was kind of immediately hooked because I'm not Nigerian. This isn't my culture. It's an amazing culture. It's not mine, but I am the child of immigrants. My sisters are immigrants. I'm the first born English person in my family. And so I have my own understanding and my own reference point for what that means to feel like you're going home and having these two cultures. And I understood the power of that narrative and what Grace was trying to achieve. So I kind of immediately was really hooked on this vision that she had and really wanted to be a part of it. And at that point, that briefing meeting was 4 weeks to the day of the first Homecoming Festival. We pulled it together in 4 weeks, which was a stupid thing for me to say yes to. It was crazy. We pulled it off and it was incredible, but I honestly to this day don't know how we managed to do it. But really, I guess that the important thing that I would want to kind of convey to anyone is planning a festival, especially in 4 weeks, but at any timeline, is so hard work. It can be very stressful, but it's so rewarding. But you really need to believe in what you're doing and have a kind of driving force, because it can get really tough sometimes. It's a lot of moving parts. It can get very stressful. It's really important to stay focused on what you're trying to achieve and what you're trying to bring to people. So yes, 2018 was an incredible year. It was very hectic, but it was unbelievable. And we really achieved that first stepping stone of what we wanted to achieve. And really, I just want to break down now sort of the process and the kind of key areas that go into planning a festival. So the first thing that you want to start off with is looking at your programming. So there's no kind of particular template that necessarily works for this that I'm going to give you access to. It can be whatever works for you. But from a Homecoming perspective, we work across music, fashion, art, sport, education, beauty, film, etc. The list is growing. And so we kind of set out at the start of the process and think, what do we want to do at next year's festival? What do we want it to look like? What do we want it to feel like? What are all the components that we want to bring to life? It might be, if it's a kind of pure music festival, you might have multiple stages and it's all music, but maybe you want to have a different theme for each stage or whatever that looks like, really kind of plotting that down on paper. And this is kind of your blue sky moment. This is all the things I want to achieve, all the people I want to work with. Are there any artists I want to do an exhibition with? Like, what does this look like in your kind of dream vision? The other thing that I would say, I always kind of, in my own mind, and I said it out loud for the first time to the team a few weeks ago and they left, but they agreed with me, that sometimes it feels like planning a festival, it feels like you're trying to build a sculpture, but rather than working with clay or any solid medium, you're trying to build it with worms because they're all wriggling off. There's so many moving parts. Things are changing all the time. And it's really, you're always trying to find these blocks, these foundational points that you can stick to and really build on. And for me, one of those big foundational points is finding the venues. When you find a venue, that then informs, maybe you enter the venue and, there's actually this other little space. So maybe we can have a little workshop in there or whatever that is. It might just open your eyes to other possibilities. When you enter a venue, you can start to envision what it's going to look like, feel like, smell like, all of those things, and start to really see the flow of the event in a tangible way. So I would sort of put finding venues, or at least, penciling things in your mind in this sort of programming process. The next thing is the less sexy thing, which is the budgeting. So the first draft of the budget for me is always kind of the most expensive version of the budget. This is where I look at the programming, all the things we've said that we want to do, and cost it all out. And at this point in my career, I kind of know, and we've done Homecoming multiple times, so I know roughly how much things are going to cost. So I kind of just do this blind based on previous costs. I don't necessarily get new quotes for things just for speed. But this is going to then tell you, okay, if we do everything, this is what I think it's going to cost us. And then, if you've done your job right, this is hopefully going to be the most expensive version of the budget. And then you're just going to move into refinement and prioritizing. So for me, I have to say, I don't actually enjoy budgets. I spend a lot of my working day doing budgets, but I don't enjoy it. I'm really not good at maths. I am very good at spreadsheets, but that's kind of a coping mechanism for me because actually I'm very scatterbrained and I've learned to use formatting things clearly in order to help me see things clearly and feel more comfortable with what I'm doing. So you don't need to be necessarily good at maths, but you do need to know how to use a spreadsheet. Lots of, tutorials that you can watch online if you don't feel like you know exactly what you're doing, but it's an important skill to kind of pick up, because the worst thing that can happen is that you think you've budgeted 10 million naira for something, but then you actually had a formatting error and it's actually going to cost you 30 million naira, and now, oh gosh, I haven't got that money. But for me, the most important thing about budgeting is actually it's really about priorities. It's about understanding what is the most meaningful thing for us, what is going to help us to achieve what we really want to achieve. And so even though budgeting doesn't feel very sexy or exciting, it really goes very much hand in hand with programming. And in order to do an effective job of your programming and that creative stuff, you really need to understand the detail of the budget so that you can make informed decisions about how to move forward, what to cut, what to build on, And the other thing that I would really advise is to think long term about what those priorities are. Don't go for the easy fix. So it might be that, so for example, with Homecoming, this year for us is a little bit different. I think everyone knows that, everyone in this room will know that the economy in Nigeria right now is really challenging. And we made a decision early on that we wanted to put as much of our budget as possible into kind of supporting the Nigerian community here rather than bringing loads of people internationally into the country. But in previous years, we've always had a huge sort of hospitality and community program where we bring people, our friends and contacts, creative community from all around the world to come to Lagos for the festival, and we really look after them and kind of create an incredible experience for them. That's an expensive thing to do, and in a black and white short-term way, that's kind of an easy thing to cut. It's not going to affect your ability to put on the festival. In a short-sighted way, it's the kind of easiest big chunk of money that you can cut out of your budget. But, and this has been a huge lesson that I've learned through Homecoming, the value that we have invested in our community has now come back tenfold through, there are people who are in our community who we met in 2018 when they were 16 and they were just kids who had, incredible creativity and a dream for themselves. And now we've grown together and now they're doing incredible things and they feel like they're part of our family in a really authentic way. And that, there's value to that, huge value to that. So don't just go for the easy cuts in a budget. Really think about what's going to help you to move to the next level and really what's important to you. The other thing, on a very practical level, is you'll see in this screenshot that there's a contingency line in every section of the budget. Everyone knows that the Naira can be really volatile. I always, in projects that are happening in London or anywhere in the world, I would always have a contingency line in the budget just for anything that you haven't, I need to courier something somewhere and I didn't realize I was going to have to do that, just so that you have a little emergency fund. But in Nigeria, I would increase that percentage. So we'd always have it at like 5 to 10%, depending on the volatility of the Naira at that time, just to allow for any fluctuations. So the next thing this leads us on to is sponsorships and partnerships. I have to say there are people who their entire day job is specifically on sponsorship and partnerships and can talk about this in much greater depth and detail than I can. But the insights that I do have from doing this with Homecoming and kind of being across this and, always being part of those relationships with partners is that it's always, always best to partner with people that you have an authentic connection with, people that you have a shared community with, people who understand and, again, have bought into the vision of what you're trying to do. The worst kind of partnership to me is someone who just wants to come in, they want to give you money, they want to slap their logo on some stuff and just get some data and move on with their lives. That doesn't feel, to me as a person who runs a festival, that doesn't feel good to me. I don't think it also really is great for the brand. It doesn't feel like a good long-term strategy. for them, and it doesn't feel good for our audience. It's really the best partnerships that we have, and we're so lucky to have some incredible partners and sponsors who have supported us over the years. The best ones are the people who are super integrated in the festival. So we love especially to work with people where we look at the programming and we say, we want to do a football match. It's really important to us. We're not going to make any money on doing this football match. We're doing it for free. The tickets are free. But let's find a sponsor or a partner who can help us make this happen. And it fulfills their kind of bigger, goals and strategy internally. But it also helps us to add something to our programming that we already want to achieve. And they're just helping us to do it. And we can do it as a collaboration, but, it's not tacking things on. It's really amplifying what you already want to do. So it feels inbuilt and intrinsic. The other thing just to explain with sponsorships and partnerships is that there's different models for what this can look like. It could be pure cash. It could be that they give you infrastructure support. We have, alcohol sponsors, for example, who they set up a bar, they hire the staff, they give us some free products. All of those things cost them money. It doesn't cross our paths, but it saves us money on our budget. And so they would also give us a financial, cash contribution as well, but it might be reduced because they're also supporting us in other more practical ways. So there's always there's different models of how you can do it. And I would also say, be really clear, set clear boundaries and guidelines of how much, tiered sort of partnership levels, and have clear deliverables of what the partner can get for that, and set that out, have it as a clear template so that it's not personal. It's just, this is what we offer. And there's room for flexibility, there's room for negotiation, there's room for doing things. But if somebody says, oh, I've only got this amount of budget, but I actually want all of that other stuff, my biggest piece of advice, and we've learned this mistake the hard way, is don't undervalue yourself. Stick to your prices. There is room. There's always different things that can be of value. Maybe somebody has an amazing audience that you actually want to tap into, and maybe that's worthwhile to you. But really don't sort of sell yourself short, because if you agree to this lower amount, but for the higher visibility and deliverables, etc., I guarantee you, no matter what they say, of next year we're going to have more money, next year they will not remember that last year they said that they had more money. They will say, we loved what we did last year, let's just do that again. And they won't sort of grow with you. And to just be really clear and sort of strong on on what your value is, because your value as, our value as Homecoming is, we have this engaged audience who come to our festival and have an amazing time and are really authentically engaged. And that's a valuable thing for a brand to sort of tap into. So just know your worth and don't undersell yourselves. This is a photo of our team from last year's festival, looking a little bit delirious at the end of the live show on the Sunday night. But the next thing is really building your team. So one thing that I would say is, and one of the templates that you're going to receive if you wish to from the QR code at the end is this org chart template. And it's really good to just, especially with a festival and when you've got loads of different things going on, and you might have we have a really small team. We're an independent festival, and we do have a small team, and an incredible small team. But it's really good to just plot out very, very clearly and communicate very clearly to everybody what everyone's roles are. And on the left-hand side, you'll see this, it's called RASCI, which it stands for Responsible, Accountable, Support, Consulted, and Informed. So responsible is the person who is responsible for making this thing happen. They're the person who is the day-to-day lead on that segment of the project. Accountable is the person who is ultimately responsible. So they're not necessarily driving it on a day-to-day basis, but if something goes wrong, then that's the person who you call. I've got a problem, I need help. And that's the person who at the end of the day, kind of the buck stops with them. And that's typically me. Support. So this is your whole team of all the different people that go into supporting that part of the project. And then consulted is people who don't necessarily need to be in every meeting. They don't need to even be on every email or whatever, but you want to just get their opinion on things because they have valuable insight to add. And then the final is informed, people that you need to know what's going on because it's going to impact their workflow, but they don't necessarily need to be part of any of the meetings. So that's kind of a good structure to be really clear about, so that no one can say, oh, I thought that someone else was dealing with that, and just so that everyone feels really clear about roles and responsibilities. The other thing that I would say on a more general note around team is, first of all, there are so many talented people. We're in Lagos, a city full of incredible talent and, brilliant people. There is always going to be someone, there's, going to be a million people who are great for the job. The best people to work with are the people who have, again, bought into the vision. They understand what you're trying to achieve. They want to be part of the world, and people that you don't necessarily need to be best friends with people, but people that you can work well with, especially running a festival. Again, it can be really high pressured and very stressful. You want people around you who you feel good being around and feel like you can support each other. So if someone doesn't feel like the right fit, even if they've come as highly recommended, amazing as their job, they probably are great at their job and they'll do great with other people. But if it doesn't feel right for you, there might be someone else who's equally great, but a better fit for you guys. And the other thing to say about team is, even if you are the person who is at the top of the, hierarchy, if you're the person who is in charge, that does not mean that you always have the right solution to every problem. That does not mean that your opinion is always the best opinion. You have hopefully built out a really great team of people who are specializing and experts in what they're doing, and they know the intricate details of their part of the project better than you do. So always respect and listen to the members of the team, and know that, if there's a lighting problem, I'm not going to go up to a lighting engineer and say, oh, just change that and da-da-da-da. I would go to the lighting technician and say, oh, this doesn't feel right. How can we solve this? What's your recommendation? How can we work together to find the best solution for this? Because I know that they have a much better starting off point than I do. So just lean on your team, trust your team, and really respect your team, and know that they have value to add. Don't have an ego about it, basically. And then the final kind of point is, again, one of the less sexy points, but it's really important. At the end of the festival, especially if it's been really exhausting and then you've had this incredible time and got all this amazing feedback and, had this incredible experience, sometimes you just want to move on with your life and just enjoy the memory and move on and do something else. But it's really important to just spend a little bit of time post-festival kind of rationalizing. So first of all, you want to kind of start with a bit of an assessment of what went well, why did it go well, how did we do that, so that you can try and remember how you did it and replicate it again. What did not go as well? What do you need to improve? And how, in that moment, what are the solutions for next year? How do we improve that and start to put things in place from the end of the last festival before you start working on the next one? Also, gathering all your statistics. Do this quickly because that's the best time to gather things. So, have you been mentioned in the press? What was the reach of that article that went out? How many people have reshared your posts? How many people attended in real life? All of that stuff. Gather it all while the iron is hot and while you can get that data in an accurate way. And then that feeds into share your recap. Share it immediately, because straight after the festival is when everyone is so excited about this festival and looking forward to next year, because you just did this incredible thing that people are looking and seeing being shared online or whatever. So that's when you want to immediately share your recap with anyone that you want to work with for next year, whether that's partners and sponsors, whether that's, particular talent that you really want to work with. Doing it, immediately is just you're not necessarily going to sign a deal for next year immediately, but just planting the seed in their mind while they're already excited and seeing people talking about it all over the place. And then the final thing is finance wrap up. So making sure that all of the invoices have been paid, people aren't chasing you and people aren't upset, and doing a budget reconciliation. What did I think I was going to spend? What did I actually spend? Did I go over budget? Why did I go over budget? How did this happen? And how do we make sure that we don't go over budget again? So that's kind of the wrap up stuff. And that's kind of me done. So this is the QR code with, again, all of our kind of key templates. So there's a budget template. There is the org chart template that I showed you. There is a work back schedule, so how you can kind of see your deadlines plotted out really clearly. your run of show, which is your schedule for how the actual festival is going to run, and a status document, which is where you can put all of your information of what is the current status of this thing and what are the next steps and who is responsible for completing those next steps. So it's really, really clear. So yes, I think we have time for some questions. Anyone has any? No? Okay.
What do you see for Homecoming 2025?
Oh, well, we've got Grace here as well. So what do we see for Homecoming in 2025? I think that we have some really exciting things on the horizon. We have, we've got a lot of things already burning that we're moving towards. Homecoming has also always been about Nigeria and the diaspora and Africa more broadly and the African diaspora. So we always, Homecoming Festival during Easter weekend has always and will always be our kind of, I always say it's like the jewel in the crown of Homecoming. It's the thing that we're all the most excited about. It's the thing we love the most. But we always do things in other parts of the world so that we're always kind of having that conversation and that connection between Africa and the diaspora. So I think there'll be some more like development and expansion into other parts of the world, which will be really exciting. And yeah, we always love to kind of create those connections, and we don't just, one of our favorite things is kind of bringing people to Nigeria for the first time and also bringing Nigerian talent and creatives, etc., to other parts of the world and kind of creating those cross-cultural connections. So that's always an important thing for us.
Sorry, how do you select your team mix, like your team members for the festival?
How do we select our team members? Well, that's a good question. So we are really fortunate that we've been working with some really excellent people since 2018 or even 2019. Some people have come in, and when you find that great team, you want to hold on to them because they understand the festival already. And, you know, if you have a great working relationship with people, then keep working with those same people. But we do, you know, if somebody emails in, then we'll definitely like look at CVs and things like that on a more broader level. We also just keep our ears close to the ground. We've got great friends like Native, you know, the team behind Native Land. We have great friends at FemFest. We have all these great friends in Lagos who are working with other people all the time, and we're always asking for recommendations. If we need somebody, do you have anyone in your network that we can kind of lean on? And we definitely find great talent that way, but I guess we're always open to meeting people and chatting with people.
Hi. In terms of teammates, have you had experiences where perhaps you hired someone that you realized actually can't work with, and how did you handle that?
We've definitely worked with people who we've worked with, and they've done a good job, but they've not felt like this is the person, this is the one that we want to work with forever and ever and ever. And in those cases, I guess it's just knowing that, yeah, they probably have great skills, but this role isn't necessarily right for them, or maybe the timing wasn't right, and just trying to keep things as respectful and keeping the doors open as much as possible, because it may just have been a bad timing thing. I think we have sometimes worked with people who haven't been, trying to think on Homecoming, I can't think of any specific examples, but certainly in previous roles, tried working with someone, it's not worked. And it's just about swift communication, being open, allowing for a dialogue so that it feels respectful, but just understanding, you know, this isn't the right fit, and thank you so much. And just because this isn't the right fit doesn't mean that you're not going to find the right fit with someone else. It's just, yeah, I guess just being honest, being open, and doing it as quickly as possible so that people don't get too attached or feel offended. Yeah.
So I sort of want to buttress on the team, like finding a team, right? Yeah. So do you sort of look out for people that tap into the vision, or people that you can just pay to get the job done. Because there's some people that they really don't tap into the vision of your brand or the idea, but they can actually get the job done. So for me, do you sort of give them an NDA to sign? Because we live in a country where people like to duplicate and steal ideas. So if you're working with certain people, do you give them like some document to sign so they don't steal your idea? So yeah.
Yeah, we do have kind of a template, standard NDA. It's not super complicated. It's just a simple one for anyone that's kind of working with us, especially if they're kind of just coming in for a day and we don't necessarily have a big relationship with them. Maybe they're just coming in to work on one event or something. We definitely do that to protect ourselves. Yeah, stealing ideas isn't fun, but also understanding that it's okay to take inspiration from other people as long as you're doing it your own way or whatever. And I think homecoming Grace always set the precedent that it's about community. It's about, we're doing this whole education program and I'm giving you my templates so that you can go and use them and do what you want to do. It's about we are pretty open access. We always want to support people. And if somebody sees what we've done and actually it helps them to do what they're doing better, then I don't think that we would necessarily be too offended by that.
Any final questions? Amazing. Okay. Well, what are three key takeaways for the audience to take away?
Oh my gosh. I guess working with people who understand the vision is always going to get you further. And I guess duplicating that for the second point of working with brands who understand the vision and want to buy into the bigger picture. They don't just want the numbers and the but they want to integrate. Team, lean on your team, respect your team, and create those long-term relationships with people.
Amazing. Can we please give a huge round of applause? Amazing. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes of planning the festival, and literally without people like Eilish, none of us will be here. From the finance to the music to things like this to the festival to all the different aspects, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes. So please just thank Eilish for her time, for all these expertise. We're so grateful for her time. So one more round of applause, please.